And then you go to TNA and you're there for over a decade, and you've said that your TNA run, in your opinion, is the better run of and your WWE run, but less people saw it. How do you kind of look back on the TNA run now?
I felt like I just started getting my bearings when I went to TNA. In other words, I matured as a wrestler. It usually takes wrestlers 6 to 8 years to kind of get it, where the light bulb goes off in your head and you're cruising. And it did, but it did it in TNA. I feel like I had a much better career in TNA than I did in WWE. I did stay there longer too. I stayed there 11 years as opposed to 7 years in WWE. And I really enjoyed it in TNA. I really had a great time there, and I didn't have to work nearly as much. I would do 100 dates a year. I wouldn't have to do 300 a year. It was a lot easier on my body. So I really enjoyed my time with TNA, but unfortunately, a lot of the WWE universe, the fans, didn't get a chance to see it. And that's the sad thing about it.
I want to ask you this question purely for my own interest. You worked with both these guys in TNA and they hate each other. So I'm just curious if you ever saw anything, and who is the stranger personality? Vince Russo and Jim Cornette.
Well, first of all, their personalities are the complete opposite. You have Vince, bro, and this and that bro, and this bro, and that bro, and Cornette's always just talking about the business. It's just, back in 1972, this happened and that happened, and, we should still do that today. And, but they did not get along. They hate each other. And it was a headache in TNA. When those two are in the same room, they were fighting all the time. They wanted to go at each other. I mean, if it was legal to fight, they would have fought, and they would have beat the out of each other. And I would have loved to have seen it. But yeah, no, they did not get along, and it was a very it was a poison situation in the company to have them both there at the same time.
I mean, Cornette's always been very complimentary of you. What was it like working with him? I can only imagine he was quite intense.
You know what? Cornette was great. He's a little old school. He likes what was going on in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And he feels that what was old is now new again, and you could do it over and over again. And I believe that. I think Jim Cornette was onto something with that. But he had a great knack for the business. Vince Russo was more storyline driven, didn't really know wrestling as much as he should have. He was more of a character development kind of person. Cornette was more of a wrestling development person. So that's probably why they clashed.
And then you come back to WWE in 2017, you get put in the Hall of Fame, and then I'm sure everyone remembers when you, for one night, became the dad of the Shield.
That was a cool night. Being a part of one of the coolest factions ever, that's a huge deal. I really enjoyed that. The Shield, that's right. Because I had to do this for like 10 times. 3 fists, I guess.
But that was your first match back with WWE in 11 years or whatever it was, on TLC. How much notice did you have that was going to be the match you were going to do, and how happy? I mean, you could see how happy you were when you popped up on screen and the Shield
I look
gear.
like a little fanboy. I know. I was having a blast. The problem though, when I came back to WWE, I took a year off and I did some indie shows. Came over here a few times to the UK. I wrestled Zack Sabre Jr., Cody Rhodes, Del Rio. Was having a really good time, keeping myself in really good shape. And then the WWE called me, and that's when Vince McMahon calls me and says, we want you to come back, and we want to induct you in the Hall of Fame. I said, okay, but I'm still wrestling. He said, I know that, but we're going to induct you in the Hall of Fame first. I said, Vince, don't you wrestle first and then get inducted in the Hall of Fame? He said, yeah, but we're going to do the opposite with you. So not only that, but the night of the Hall of Fame, he came to me right after I did my speech, and he said, tomorrow I want you to be the GM of Raw. I said, what happened to the wrestling? He said, it'll come. Don't worry about that. Wrestling right now. You're going to Raw. You're going to be the GM of Raw. So I stopped training, and I wasn't in the ring anymore because I couldn't do any in-ring training. The GM role took up a lot of time of the day. It was a really busy because you're involved in every storyline. So the training goes out the window. And I was probably the GM for a good, 7 or 8 months. And I started wrestling again, but unfortunately, my body didn't really enjoy it. I gained 25 pounds, I got real heavy, and my knees started to bother me. I started having injuries in my quad muscles, and I just couldn't keep it together. And unfortunately, I did not have the matches I wanted to have to retire from WWE. And that's the only thing that I do regret. I just wish the WWE would have did it the opposite way. They would have me wrestle and then make me GM and then induct me in the Hall of Fame. If they would have done that, I think I would have been sent off a little bit in a better way.